You're not going to want to miss what we talked about on Shoe In this week.
We actually have zero commercial visibility. We don't have a website. We don't advertise. We have no outbound sales. People have heard through either buyers or different parts of the trading partners. And so I think the best form of marketing is actually just doing it instead.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Shoe In Show, which is the shoe industry's favorite podcast, all about the business side of the shoe industry. Sandy, you've been on the business side of the shoe industry since birth, I think. I grew up in a shoe family, Footwear News for nearly 20 years, FDRA for years after that. So you know the industry and you know all the players. And I'm really excited that, one, you're my partner in crime today on today's program. But two, that you're here to introduce our guest and help me talk through their shoe story and what they do, what role they serve in our industry. So without further ado, who are we talking to today?
Yes, we are excited to be joined by two incredible people. One woman that I've known for the majority of my footwear life, Jennet Chow and Mike Chen, co-CEOs of Evolution Design Lab. Welcome. We're really excited to have you on today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd like to start out by kind of asking you a little bit about your history and just how you entered the footwear market and what your shoe story is. So tell us a little more.
I guess I could start. By the way, this is our first podcast ever where we're both in it. So this is very special.
That's
just
awesome.
For you guys, FDRA, best podcast in the shoe industry. So I guess I'll start with this because I've been in the shoe industry much longer than Mike. My parents actually started off at the swap meets in downtown LA and Los Angeles, around the area, when I was 4 years old. So I remember following them along because they couldn't afford a babysitter, and I would just sit in the back of the trucks and with an ice cooler, very unsafe now, but I would sit on some of the boxes as we were going from swap meet to swap meet. So that's how I started. I would display shoes, and we got really lucky when my parents decided to quit their day job and just focus on footwear. They moved to downtown LA where the fashion district is now. And they had a guy who was completely lost. He came from New York. His name is Bobby Bruce Levy. And he saw a huge shoe sign. He made the wrong turn, and there's a lot of one-way streets there, and just couldn't find there was no GPS at the time. There was those maps. And so he finally settled and was like, I'm just going to walk into this shoe store with a huge shoe sign. And he goes in and tells my dad, can you please make a prototype of this shoe? If you make this prototype, I could sell it all over the department stores. And my dad thought he was crazy because he had no shoe background. He was a singer from New York. And my dad just was like, okay, I'll just help you with the sample. And it turns out Bobby actually came back with orders from I-Magnin, Bullock's, all the department stores, Macy's. Just my dad was just really impressed and said, okay, we could partner. And ever since then, it was, in my mind, the trinity of partnerships. It was Bobby, my dad, and my mom, the three of them who built Primo Royale Enterprises. And that eventually we had Primo Royale. When there were no licensing or copyright issues, they did the Batman shoe, Dick Tracy, Betty Boop at Macy's, all the first tier department stores. And I watched them just grow and grow. And I would watch my dad design the shoes in front of me while watching the news. Whatever was on trend, like the Phantom of the Opera, he would draw the face, and that became $1 million shoe the next season. And that really inspired me. At 15 years old, my dad had a heart attack, unfortunately lived, but retired. And that's when my mom asked me to start sketching for her because she couldn't sketch. And that's how I really got immersed in the footwear business, because then I would see my designs on people's feet, and I was hooked since then. And this was during the time when we got the license for mud footwear, which became huge, over $100 million revenue business alone. And we were one of the first to do vegan shoes, as we went from Nordstrom, high-end stores, Macy's, And we transitioned. This is when Target was getting big, Kohl's, all the second tier department stores. This is in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that's when a lot of the chunky shoes became very big, the whole 90s look. I helped create that, I would say, product line. And then I hired 10 designers within 3 years while I was at fashion school, and we blew up from there. And when I was 29, my husband and I started Evolution Design Lab with the brand Jellypop. And that's kind of, I fast forward really quickly, but that's how I got in the footwear industry.
Okay. I want to hear more about the shoe swaps. For a lot of people, they don't know what that actually means. So we're gonna circle back to that in a quick second. But Mike, when you started in the land of footwear, what was your background and how was that jump into the market?
I mean, my background was very different. I came from Disney and Pixar, where I was a programmer doing a lot of 3D rendering in itself. And so like a lot of companies, Pixar would come up with all the movies and then they developed that. And what we had done at Disney when I worked there was basically to take the movies apart and then they'd take it for licensing because animators didn't want to deal with all the consumer companies in itself. And so I was like this technical yet business development bridge between the two different sides. So that was my previous life. And then they were doing this little thing called GPU programming 3D, which is like now obviously really in fashion because of AI. And it's funny how impactful it's been. But I met Jennet through basically social circumstances. We grew up together also in the same town and then married into this entire family and industry. And it was a very different perspective coming from programming in high tech for Fortune 50 companies to basically literally cobbling. And so it was an eye-opening event in itself. It was two completely different worlds.
Yeah. Well, before I have some questions, but let's settle the swap meet thing because I want to make sure everyone knows what that is at the start. And then I have some questions. So Jennet, maybe illuminate those who are not quite sure what a swap meet is.
Yeah, of course. So in the 80s, I know for sure, maybe it started in the 70s. A lot of people sold or they rented spaces like marketplace, but they would rent parking lots or land and then set up a station, almost like a pop-up shop.
Yeah.
But not as exciting as what pop-up shops are
almost
now.
like a flea market.
Yes, exactly. Flea market is a great way to say it.
Okay.
It was like a flea market and it was on weekends.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who immigrated here would do that because you didn't need a whole business license or anything like that. So that's a great way to test the market.
That's right.
Yeah, it's there's a whole subculture to it. Even in the South, I grew up in the South, and there's flea markets was the term, which is not nearly as cool as swap meet, but there's always like a negative connotation to going to a flea market for some reason.
Oh, right.
But fast forward to 2026. I mean, if you think about when I think about your name, Evolution Design Lab, and maybe Mike, this is your influence, or maybe you both came up with it, but talk to me about what you're trying to communicate to the industry as to what's behind the name. Because to me, it gives this innovative, future-focused, futuristic kind of approach to who you are as a company. And so what are you trying to communicate? And then behind that name, what's that service you're providing the industry that really helps you fulfill the whole Evolution Design Lab moniker, if you will?
You start?
You get finished.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
By the way, your aesthetic is like the best one we've ever had in 10 years on Shoe and Show. I just got to stop and say that this is the best looking guests we've ever had on our program. We've done this since July of 2015. So well done.
Thank you. So, right. So we were dating when he came into my parents' company. When we were dating, I was around 19, 20 years old. And he came in and was like, you guys are still faxing? And you guys are still using just Excel sheets? And he was just blown away at how slow our process was. And ever since he started coming in, a lot of our managers would be like, oh, you could write software? Can you help us do the X, Y, and Z? And he started coming into the office more. We got married, and that pretty much sealed the deal. He had to help the family business. And actually, the software was incredible. We became so much more efficient. Fast forward to 2009 when we started Evolution Design Lab. That was actually based on a need, super long story there. But at the time, we were thinking, okay, mud, I don't know if it got bought out by multiple people, had lots of different transitions. We went direct to retail with Kohl's, and they cut our business to a fifth of what it was. And for me, I always wanted to continue a legacy of footwear ever since I was a kid. And I was thinking, gosh, how do we survive this? Again, this is 2009 when the economy was not good. A lot of companies were going bankrupt. And we were thinking, oh, Phoenix, we rise from the ashes. But I didn't want the Phoenix name. And I remember when I studied psychology and evolution at UCLA, I came across this quote that I loved, and it was by Charles Darwin about evolution. And it's not the strongest or the fittest or the most intelligent that survive. It's the one most willing to adapt to change. And I love that concept of just constantly adapting to change. And it's true, I'm not the smartest, but I'm always very willing, and I think this has to do with my background as a swap meet. I'm always willing to adapt to whatever it is, no matter how hard it is. And so in my mind, I was thinking, if we want to survive and continue for now another 17 years, which is crazy, we need to continuously figure things out. And so thankfully, with his background, and I'll segue to you to finish this off, he has really helped us in that area.
So, I mean, we got to see obviously like the rise of Jennet's parents' company in Primarale, but then also, unfortunately, also got to see the fall. I had read the book by Clayton Christensen called Innovator's Dilemma, and it actually led a very resonating impression on me in terms of how important it is to actually be able to internally disrupt your own business. And a number of businesses that didn't actually do that, they ended up collapsing. And there's been time and time again, it's the profits of the past really bolster this sense of false self-confidence in itself. And how can we actually maintain that edge of constantly disrupting ourselves? So that was like the underlying thesis in itself. Being a technologist myself, and Jennet being definitely on the aesthetic and the design side for merchandising, we wanted to figure out how could we use technology in the most robust way to actually be able to drive our product development, merchandising, and sales. And so we basically built out a sales platform and design platform where we were able to ID really quickly while maintaining a very low overhead. And we basically went to market by taking a lot of the gross profit that most companies would take on, and we want to deliver that into the value of the shoes itself. So we built up a gigantic supply chain system where we incorporated our factories, our component suppliers, our retailers, ourselves, and everybody's on a single platform. And then we're able to actually do merchandising, product development, purchasing, import, sales. And it accelerated, and our business basically blew up. Because if we were selling it for, I'm just going to make it up, for us and another competitor at the same MSRP, we would have a deliverable, better value product because we were able to source it better and actually go through the ideation phase faster. That was like version 1.0. Version 2.0, we basically took that same platform, and after the entire evolution of AI, we basically went through another version and Phoenix moment within our own company, burned ourselves down and rose up again. And then now we're at the point where we're able to ideate, I'd say faster than any other company in the world, where we could take a picture of a shoe, come up with 15 different designs, colorways, a breakdown to the tech pack, and also have a picture of a model on it in probably less than 2 minutes or less. And then we can merchandise directly. The factories can receive the tech pack and they can immediately start speccing and their estimated costs. I mean, for us, the platform is actually more valuable than the shoe company in itself, because I think we're closer to Amazon than we are Nike, where Nike is very focused necessarily on product sales and the branding in itself. We've basically become an infrastructure company that's able to use the shoes as a flywheel in itself to actually ideate. And because of that reason, we've actually become also pivoted into being a software company too. So we're a SaaS business as well. And then our big customer is Revolve Clothing and Apparel. And so they do all the product development and merchandising through our platform now.
Wow. Sorry, Matt, I know you have a lot of questions. I have one quick question. Is the software also called Evolution Design Lab? Is that under the same?
It's in a parallel company called Edge Tech Ventures. And then we actually have zero commercial visibility. And so we don't have a website. We don't advertise. We have no outbound sales. And then a number of large retailers and design houses have come approached us. And then for the most part, we say no. And because we also design hardware devices where they're actually in the factories and you can immediately barcode scan things and then you can see exactly the production status. And so it's completely frictionless. And people have heard through either buyers or different parts of the trading partners within our supply chain about what we do. And so I think the best form of marketing is actually just doing it instead.
Yeah, he's used our company, honestly, as a guinea pig.
It sounds like
inventions. He naturally is just very interested in all of this. He loves to tinker. He's always coming up with ideas. He sleeps 4 hours a night. So it's just always a new idea every time. So it's perfect.
That is perfect. I mean, we have this, when we get together, I always talk to our team about nothing's sacred in the sense that if we need to blow it up, if we need the Phoenix moment within what we do as an organization, then we should go after it. We shouldn't just rest on, we've done it. This is always how we've always done it. Therefore, we should continue to do it. But what's the balance, Jennet, maybe between you and Mike about, okay, you want to burn this down, but this is actually really valuable. Talk about that interplay, because I love the philosophical, but there's also the practical, and you want to be forward thinking while continuing to kind of hold on to a strong foundation that you clearly started to build at the swap meets so many years ago. So what's that dynamic like?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Well, there's so many ways I can answer this. I remember Bobby back in Pumariel, just witnessing the three of them, I call them the Trinity, all three of them completely different personalities. And Bobby was always the one forward. We need to do this. So this is the next big thing. And then my mom was behind, just making sure the operations was taken care of. And my dad was on the side, just being the face of the factories towards the end of his career. And I loved that. I knew they had to have three completely different roles to work. And I mean, we've been married now 25 years. And the number one, how in the world do you guys work together and stay together? I would divorce if I were to work with my spouse. And I would have to say we've had a lot of therapy, but long story short there is that we are in each other's lanes. That's the only way it could work. And so I trust him fully when he has a new idea. And I say, go for it. A lot of times, honestly, the employees feel like, oh my gosh, another new thing that we have to learn. And so I'm a lot, like I told you guys, I study psychology. I'm more management and people. They call me the oil for the, what did Tara call me? Anyway, I make things smooth for the transition. I make things smooth, and I'm almost like everyone's cheerleader to transition to the next big thing. But our employees are all super incredible. They're all of this culture. And I learned a lot from Tony Hsieh, I have to say. I remember culture is so important. So all our employees are all willing to learn. And so that really helps. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, for me, I think so. She handles very much the emotional side, the culture side. And then I would say I'm more of the financial engineering. For us, if we're in the shoe business, and I can bring it up through COVID, we made a lot of investments into other areas that were not retail instead. So we wanted to shore up our balance sheet by making investments into tech companies like Zoom, for instance, and eventually transition a lot of our investments to this little company you might have heard called NVIDIA. And yeah, so NVIDIA did really well for us, and it was actually the counter hedge in itself. And so when we got hammered by tariffs, because our gains were so large on the NVIDIA side, it was okay to burn the house down because it didn't really matter because we're playing with house money in essence. And having that kind of financial freedom and flexibility basically always puts us on path basically for the next iteration of the company in itself. So we're never afraid. I think that one of the biggest influences and impacts is like that I noticed through all the years is that private equity slams on a lot of debt. And when you have debt, then you don't necessarily have the freedom to actually maneuver. But if you have the exact opposite of debt, which is an over heavy asset base, then you could do whatever you want.
That's true. And you're also not public, right? So
Yeah,
you're like
exactly.
right in the sweet spot. You're flush with cash, but it's not a quarter by quarter consideration on what your performance is.
Right. We do what's best for the company. It's at the time, and I would say very nimble because we don't have as many employees as well because of the software that makes everything so much more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd also love to touch on the culture that Jennet mentioned before and talk just for a second about the fact that Jenet's mother was really essential in the growth of the business.
Yes.
Jennet, one of the biggest female leaders in the footwear industry, where there's not a lot of women that are CEOs and at that level in an industry with a lot of family and a lot of history, with a lot of factories overseas. You said that your father was the face of some of that business. I think that's an interesting take on that. But culturally, I know your family is involved. I know I've met your daughter. I know some more people. I mean, it's really a footwear family. Same for myself too. I've lived by it honestly as well. But I really do want to talk about the culture of the company. I know you lead a really strong group of people. You said you have a great team behind you, and I know that you really support women in the industry. So if you want to touch on that, I'd love to hear.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've known Sandy for a really long time. You've seen my daughter since she was really young, and more recently too at the show. First of all, I remember one of the biggest motivators for me to continue this shoe business is because I wanted to see more women in the shoe business. Remember, I started very young when it was completely dominated by men. And all the meetings when I started when I was 18 years old was about football. And I knew nothing about football. And so I've seen it transition. And I remember around the time when 210 Foundation, Peggy Mill, brought me in. And this is when they were starting Wi-Fi, women in the footwear industry. And this is again around 2009 when Diane Sullivan and Carol Bayaki were leading. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. We're finally doing something for women. And so I just loved that. And a lot of the women took me under their wings, including Beverly Goldberg, who I'm sure you guys all know from Florsheim. She still includes me in so many things. And I remember I also wanted to be a good example as a leader, even within the company. Just in general, as I see my 3 kids who are all adults now, I wanted them to become good leaders, and I had to be a good example. So for me, taking care of the employees in a way where I would want to be treated was very important. I know there's some toxic culture within some of the industry, that's what I wanted to avoid. And so I learned, again, I have to credit Tony Shea for this because I knew one of the first 10 employees and she would invite me there, talk about the culture. First of all, no assholes in the company, and everyone has to be incredibly collaborative. And we also cannot take anything personally because this is shoe business. We just have to do what's right for the whole team. And we run it very much like a team in the sense where everyone knows their role as well, and we all help each other, and there's no right or wrong, as long as you tell the truth in the sense of aesthetically, like we're doing this for the whole company. And so everyone here puts a lot of the sweat equity into making the company the best it could be. Yeah, and I have some employees have been with me since Primorial. the ones I first hired when I was at fashion school are still with me. So that's a true testament to like how I take
Speaks
care of the
volumes.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Now, Mike, let me ask you this. I'm getting like left brain, right brain vibes between the two of you. So I'm gonna pivot from culture into kind of the technical aspect, because one of the challenges I think companies are trying to ascertain is, okay, there's this AI landscape. It's just littered with all these different tools. I have no idea how to get started. What would your advice be for a company within the shoe industry to, what tools should they leverage? I'm using Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, and my email tells me what to do now. And it's like, how on earth do you start to leverage technology? You don't have to give away any secret sauce of what you're doing, but are there just general themes that come to mind in your experience based on kind of the technical aspect of the success of your company?
I was asked recently to speak in an event. I'll tell you my 2 cents, because I've been doing this for a long time. AI, like back when it was machine learning and everything else before. So I would say AI is like sex in junior high. Everybody talks about it, but no one's actually doing it. And then it's just like this like wild curiosity in itself. And then you haven't figured out exactly how to monetize really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. And what it really comes down to is like, you have to know exactly what you're doing eventually at some point in time. And every company actually has to understand where their data is. And then the second part is like what your strategy is to actually get to what you want. And so I would actually take a look at like, what's my goalpost? A lot of people look at AI as like a way of potentially doing cost reduction, all these other things. And then if that's your strategy, fine, so be it, because that's like your thought process. But then what does it actually take to get to that point? And you have to take a look at your critical path. Well, if I want to actually be able to, I'm just going to make it up, import all of my goods and clear customs, then I have to actually be able to have all my records from my POs. And then I need the factories to actually have the HTS codes identified. And then you have to say, well, where am I going to get everything? And so you have to be able to actually identify all those data points. Companies think that by giving people the tools like AI, you can actually get to profitability. I would say it's like the equivalent parallel of the internet just came. Am I going to be able to find a way to higher profitability through email? That's not really a strategy. It's just by giving the tools in place, it's not going to be good enough. What you really want to do is, what's my goal? Okay, well, I want to have commerce, like e-commerce, like Amazon, for instance. Then that means I need to have a data warehouse. I need to have a website, a marketing. You have to go backwards based on what is your end goal. And then how is AI going to be slotted in the right places with which tools? So there's two parts. One is strategy. One is also the audit side of exactly knowing where all my data is. And then the third part is actually fluency in all the different tools that are actually going to get you to your goal and your destination. And so it's like, do I need a web server? Do I need to have a warehouse? Well, what's the equivalent of that in AI in essence? So that's kind of like what we're looking at.
That's a great way to look at it, because I was on a call today with a CEO of another company, a member company, and he said essentially, I've made a lot of investments in AI, but I'm still trying to figure out what the ROI is on it. I'm getting all these bills. And I joked at the time, the actual AI companies they're not profitable either. They're trying to monetize it as well. And they're overvalued in the marketplace. So there's going to be this level set, I think, that happens. And it's really hard to tell one footwear company, this is the route you should go, and the other company, you should go down this route. But to have that strategy, what's the end goal, to your point, Mike, I think is critical. And people are still figuring that out. It's coming so fast that they think they need to have it settled already. But I think we're just getting started. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
I mean, yeah, this is definitely like first inning in itself. I mean, for us, like we've used it in a way where we're able to productize so fast that it's increased our sales and our EBITDA past the margins that we had actually anticipated. And so we're getting a much higher ROI than we had anticipated. And then I can share some of these numbers. I mean, right now, I think for this upcoming year, our revenue per FTE is going to probably clip over 3.5 million. And then I think there's a very distinct possibility, if we finished out most of our automations, we can move up to potentially 8 to 15 million revenue per FTE, as long as we go through the right roll-ups and acquisitions.
Yeah, that's incredible. So let's take a peek at the future. I mean, it seems like you're building the plane while you fly it, and you need something, you'll just create the program. or the software for it. So I'm guessing you're using some other technologies to help support your business, but primarily it sounds like you're just building it yourself, which is really efficient. But looking ahead,
and not expensive for me,
yeah,
which is great.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's say we're looking, I don't even want to look, I don't do a 5-year plan anymore because people say even a 5-month plan feels pretty too far ahead. But looking ahead at the next year or so, Jen, Mike, like where is EDL? Like where are you going in terms of footwear versus software versus, are you looking at new licenses? Are you looking at more private label? What's the goal for you, as you put it?
I'll let you answer this.
I would say that our hands are in probably like 5 different pies, like different pies in itself. One aspect is the software side. It's going to keep on accelerating with the existing customer base on the SaaS platform. And then it's just going to increase in monetization because it's charged now on a token count. For EDL, we're continuing to optimize. I think for us, like we're probably in a 3rd inning. I think we have a long ways to go in terms of being able to optimize and productize even better and merchandise faster. And a lot of our retailers, like the big publicly traded ones, are actually partnering up on that side. So they're able to actually go into style ads and be able to see the marketing campaigns along with all the shoes that are actually selected in itself. And that's probably going to be like in the next 2 quarters that we're going to be going down that path in terms of that aspect. We might consider doing private label and expanding it. It kind of depends. And so we have one retailer that we're talking to later this month, and that could be a potential avenue in itself. And then much we had discussed earlier, we have to have basically the scaffolding as a phoenix to be able to have the financial investments to offset what are liabilities in retail. The way that I talked to Jennet and also a lot of my friends about it is like, we're in a high risk business because we have to guess what women want next year when they don't even know what they want next year. So how the heck are we supposed to know? That by definition equates like extreme uncertainty.
And we don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know what's going to happen
or anything.
It's like their temperament comes and goes. And so we've made some investments with their infrastructure in private credit finance in itself with their infrastructure. So it's able to generate also a lot of cash flow on that side. So that way it's like a multi-pronged approach. We build up the scaffolding. We take a look at how we could actually multiply and accelerate the utilization of our software in our apparel companies. And then we try to optimize within our own company and also expand business development with retail channels distribution within itself. And so it's a multi-pronged approach.
So I'm going to throw out one last question to Jennet, because you are employee number 1 or 2 or 3, somewhere in that mix of the company. Yeah. We started this conversation on negative things turning into positives, right? A wrong turn or your father's unfortunate heart attack leading to these things that turned out to be silver linings. What do you want over the next year for your company? What is your wish? If we were having this conversation in July of 2027 or 2028, maybe to get around Sandy's question about the 5-year plan, what do you want for your company looking back on this moment?
I've talked about this with Mike. I feel like on our 17th year, next February is our officially 18 years. We're leading to the 20th year. And I was just thinking, I feel like all the stars are aligning naturally. I mean, I have big dreams. I don't know if I should make this public yet, but I do think that we're going to continue to grow. I know there's a lot of, he was talking about operations. I do think we're one of the best operators in the business. I would say maybe the diamond in the rough where no one really knows about us unless they work with us. And the great thing is all our customers who've been with us for the whole time, 17 years under Evolution Design Lab, calls us the smartest people in the industry and the fastest. And so I kind of love that.
Charles Darwin.
Yeah. So it's a huge compliment to us because it is the word of mouth. And I know some brands are struggling with operations. I would love to honestly buy out some brands or work with some brands and help them and use this platform and become a platform company.
I love that. Sandi, any last questions?
Oh,
on
I
your
was just
side?
going to say, I mean, to Mike's point about the fact, or maybe it was Jennet that said, you don't know what's going to happen with the weather or the tariffs
Yes.
or the trends or whatever. You just need to get, I guess, it's the same as the stock market, right? It's just volatile and you get one big hit like Nvidia or something like that. So you could also throw out some stock tips for people, because if that's one of the ones, if that's the one that you hung your hat on back 10 years ago, you did quite well and you were able to survive on some of that, right? But if you have your hand in all of these different pies, as you mentioned, some of them are going to really thrive and you're watching them really closely, right? You can't bank on one shoe, one company, one design, one method, right? You have to have like all these different things working at the same time. I think that's where FDRA has survived and thrived. We're evolving on a daily, on a monthly level, and we've acquired and managed so many different parts of the business. So we're with you all the way, and we're really thrilled to be partnering with you. We're thrilled that you guys are members and part of the pop-up, and I'm so excited about your success. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, have been amazing. And I love the space that you guys gave us. And we're so excited to work with both of you. And Sandi, I've known you for so long. And Matt, Priest, I love what you're doing to even speak in Washington, D.C. and fight for us with tariffs, etc. So thank you for all the work.
You're so welcome. That's what we're here for. We really appreciate it. Well, thank you for coming on this program and again giving us our best visual ever in a decade-long podcast. This is like our 550th episode, and we finally got it right aesthetically. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Say any last words?
Yeah, Mike, you got anything else? You good?
Yeah, got last words.
I'm good.
All right, good.
If you ask me a question, then maybe, but outside of that, just knock on my door if you need anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a perfect way to end it. Knock on Mike's door if you need anything, folks. This has been another exciting edition of the Shoe and Show. As we display week after week, we have some really smart and thoughtful and cool friends, and Jennet and Mike are just two more examples of that. Go to shoeandshow.com to see all of our episodes. Make sure you subscribe and make sure that you check back in with us next Monday for another great edition of this program. And until next time, Shoe and Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.